Hi there, I'm Danny Flexen.
This is Joe Leigh.
We're here to preview week 2 of Fight Camp. Hopefully some of you tuned in to last week, week 1. I think Joe got a clean sweep, got all the winners right, I believe. I think you did, yeah.
I
because I picked Yildirim to beat Cullen, and that was obviously wrong, but I think we agreed on the rest and they were all right.
And in fairness, I thought Tommy McCarthy won.
So did I.
But listen, I'm taking
the
it.
judges said Bilham Smith won. We predicted him, so
yeah.
it counts.
So I'm going to take that as a W, and hopefully I can get a clean sweep this week. We're going to do 3, aren't we? The top 3. So
yeah, I think apart from the main event, it might be pretty straightforward. I don't want to tempt fate, but the main event is incredibly hard.
I've got a banner in the works. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, here we go. All right. So which fight are we starting with?
Let's start with Babbage versus Mark Bennett. Alan Babbage, of course. 7 wins, 7 KOs. And Mark Bennett is a good fighter. But Alan Babbage, for me, I think it's going to be I think he's going to batter him. I don't think it's going to be a contest. I can see a really easy early stoppage as well. He's an angry man. He's got a good persona. A lot of people like to see the direction he's going in. And I think you've spoke to me about him saying, I didn't watch this interview, but it could have been a Zoom call or whatever. And he was saying he's worried about the move to the zone and how that's going to affect his exposure.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That was on a Zoom call.
Talk on that a bit. What did he say?
He was just saying he's always been treated really well by Sky, and he's become I wouldn't say a star necessarily, but certainly a more well-known boxer through his association with Sky.
Yeah.
And for people like him, I guess there is that concern because Sky is this ubiquitous force where, you see them on Sky Sports News. They all do crossover marketing on the other sports. And so he moves to the zone. It is a bit of a step into the unknown, but hey, he's still getting paid well, I'm sure. So
yeah, exactly. But I think after this, he needs a step up, whether it's the winner of Wardley versus Webb, whether it's someone at Frank Warren's stable, which just sounds unlikely.
Well, he can't have the winner of Wardley Webb because he's in the same management team as Wardley, isn't he?
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen. They're very friendly as well. But I agree with you. Like a lot of people, right? So it's a bit of a weird comparison, but Jake Paul, right? Everyone's always saying, when's he going to fight a real boxer? Because whoever he fights, even if they're experienced combat athletes, there's always a negative in the column. Do you know what I mean? And with Babbage, it's a similar thing, right? So he's fought Damian Chambers, decent enough, but was inactive, had been, hurt before, not the best. But for everyone Babbage has fought, there's always something counting against them, whether it's inactivity, whether it's size, although not often size, considering he's a small heavyweight.
Yeah.
There's always something where you think, right, well, Babbage should be favoured. And this one's no different. Mark Bennett's a decent fighter, but hasn't fought for ages. He hasn't fought since
losing to Nick Webb in the final of the boxer tournament, yeah.
So he hasn't fought for ages. Babbage has been fighting more regularly. He's big and heavy, but he's not a massive puncher, Bennett. You just expect Babbage to tear through him, as we both do. But yeah, I agree. I think Babbage is long overdue to step up. And, if he's going to keep being on these high-profile shows, we need to see him tested. And I know people that like him will say, well, some of the fights on paper have been fine, but then, they've got a taste of Babbage early on. They haven't really fancied it. There might be some truth to that, but then put him in with someone who's ambitious, who wants to win, and who's, fought regularly and has a good record. And then see if it,
and he's only 7-0, but I think by the time he gets to 10, whether that's 10 or 0 or not, we're yet to find out. But he needs at least 1 or 2 tests before he gets to 10-0, because then it's just a record that looks shiny, but he's fought no one of real nature and someone who's going to test him properly. So I think within the next 1, 2, 3 fights, before he gets to 10-0, he needs a couple of tests. But as for this weekend, I think it's going to demolish Mark Bennett. I really do.
Yeah, poor Mark Bennett. Let's hope he doesn't watch this.
Right, you can go first on this one.
All right, so Nick Webb against Fabio Wardley, or Fabio Wardley, I should have said first, because he is the reigning English heavyweight champion. But very intriguing fight. They've kind of capitalised on the fact that Nick Webb pulled off that great win in March against Eric Pfeiffer on the Gibraltar show, which came out of nowhere. Like, Pfeiffer hadn't really been tested as a pro, but was a standout amateur. He was in line to fight Daniel Dubois before he pulled out through injury not too long ago as well. I think everyone expected him to get past Webb, probably stop him because Webb's only 2 defeats have both come inside the distance. And Webb just went in with the right mentality, which hasn't always been the case in his career, and just bulldozed him, stopped him in the second round and put his name back in the mix for big fights. And he's got one against Fabio Wardley. I think it's a really interesting fight.
I think Nick Webb wins, Danny. I really do. I think he's riding a serious wave, obviously winning the Ultimate Boxer, beating Pfeiffer, and little to no one expected him to win. And then you've got Fabio Wardley, who's coming off probably the worst performance of his career. Yeah, it was a tough opponent, but you look at the trajectory of their last fights. Fabio Wardley's not on a great run. His confidence will probably be a bit unsteady. And then Nick Webb, he's someone who's had that big turnaround, and that Ultimate Boxer was kind of not the pinnacle. Obviously, his last win was the pinnacle of that, but people can take losses in boxing, and he lost to Dave Allen, and everyone remembers him from that. But when he won on that undercard of Gibraltar, I really think he's actually turned his career around, and this could be, for me, I think it's going to be the biggest night of his life. If he loses, he's also got everything to lose. So if he loses, I mean, a lot of people expect him to. His career's pretty much done. I spoke to him yesterday. Him and Scott were saying he's got more to lose. So why don't you just put everything at this fight, which I think he will, and then you've got more of a chance. I spoke to Fabio as well, and he mentioned he feels Eric Molina, and this is probably true, is better than him in every category. Now, what you don't think?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's mentality as well, isn't it? Nick Webb, this is like a huge fight for him, whereas Eric Molina's coming towards the end of his career. He's fought at a higher level than Wardley. He probably wasn't overly motivated, was he?
Yeah, and the way Fabio said Nick Webb is lower than Eric Molina in every category, that screams to me you're underestimating someone. And the way Nick Webb was talking about Fabio Wardley, he wasn't sending any shade his way. He's like, no, this is just a fight. He's not getting involved. He's not getting emotional. And that's dangerous. We know the slogan, a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter. And I see Nick Webb surprising a lot of people. Even if he doesn't win, I feel like he's going to either rock Fabio Wardley, but one thing I will say is he's going to surprise people in this contest. And I'm going to go Nick Webb for the win.
I think they're both hittable, as we've seen in recent times. I think it's hard to say because we haven't seen Wardley in with like a massive puncher yet, but he seems to have a good enough chin. Like he took the shots well that he took against Molina and stormed back to win. Nick Webb got chinned by that, probably the best punch Dave Allen's thrown in his entire life, or certainly the best one he's landed. That overhand right is just very, I still think about it now. It's a great shot. Set up really well with a left hook to the body as well. Like the best thing Dave Allen's ever done in a ring, I think. Mm-hmm. But regardless of that, I just think Wardley might take a shot better. He's younger, fresher, more athletic, certainly. He's a lot lighter. So if it becomes a bit of a war and Webb can use his, extra weight to his advantage, that might make a difference. But I don't know. I can't see this going the distance. It's definitely going to end inside schedule. And I would fancy Wardley to be able to stand up to Webb's shots better than vice versa. So I'm picking Wardley, but it's not a confident pick by any means.
Yeah, I think it's good that Fight Camp have these types of fights kind of domestic, if you like. I know Tommy McCarthy's not from England, but like these 50-50 fights in the co-main event, they give something more than just a good headliner to look forward to. I think that's vital to have because without that, sometimes the main event could end up being dire. I mean, we see Kid Galahad, he's not always in the best fights, so hoping we have a good fight in this co-main event. It'll sort of it'll leave less of a stain on it if the main event isn't great, which I guess we'll move on to now. But I'm looking forward to the co-main event.
I think one element of hope for the main event is that the first fight between, I know it was a long time ago, but the first fight between Galahad and Dickens was actually really good.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
8 years ago.
It's all about styles, isn't it? But they meshed together for the first one, although, I don't know, Jazza's a lot more mature now and a lot more of a thinking fighter in the ring. And I think that might not lend itself to an amazing spectacle necessarily, but it's such a good fight, like such a high level fight, 2 Brits, the rematch angle, just everything about it.
Yeah.
It's a great fight.
I'm with you
I
on
think it's
that.
the best fight of Fight Camp overall.
I think it could be. Ben Granados would have been, just because I like Conor Benn. I think Conor Benn would have stormed through him, as I mentioned last week. But this is now probably the top one. Definitely the best main event. In fact, Leewood Kanshu was good, or Shukan or whatever. But yeah, on this fight, I think I'm not
on
taking.
Paper, we don't know how it's going to turn out on the night, but yeah, on paper, it's the best one. I'd say it's the highest level fight. Certainly, you know, it's a full world title rather than a regular world title. That's no disrespect to what Leewood did. It was a great win.
It isn't a real world title though, is it? Let's be honest. But with the first fight, I mean, I take literally nothing from it. Like 8 years ago, think about how much we as people change, let alone as athletes, let alone as fighters. So I don't take much from it. I don't think there will be a knockout, to be honest. I think Kid Galahad will.
No, I think it's definitely going the distance.
I think Kid Galahad will win, not comfortably. I like Jazza Dickens. I probably want him to win, but Kid Galahad, I think he's just more experienced. He's literally a gym rat. Like, he sleeps at the Ingle gym. Like, everyone knows the stories of him, like, training harder than anyone. And I think that's the big factor going into this fight. He's obviously got experience at world level. So is Jazza Dickens, but in the fight against Josh Warrington, he was very close. Some people thought he won it. I thought he did. I'm going to have to watch it again tomorrow, probably, because I remember watching it at the time thinking that's really close, but I want to have a stonewall opinion on whether he did win the first fight before going into that, so I can have sort of a better prediction. But currently, as it stands, I think he wins this, and he could go on to fight, Leewood, rematch with Warrington. The door for the winner is wide open to some big fights.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they've both improved a lot, I think. Galahad's been fighting at a top level for a bit longer, or at least succeeding at a top level for a bit longer. Jazza has lost a couple of fights at a high level. Rigondeaux, obviously, most famously, lost his British title to Tommy Ward. Yeah. It's been a tough road for Jazza, but he's fought more recently. He won the Golden Contract final 8 months ago. Kid Galahad's been out of the ring for 18 months by the time they get in the ring. So that's a big difference. Like you said, he is a gym rat, but how much does that make up for not having competitive action for as long as he hasn't? Although he's had long periods of inactivity before and still performed well on his return.
Yeah.
Jazza, active because he had those 3 fights in quick succession for the Golden Contract and fought good people as well. Obviously beat Leewood in the semi-final, then Ryan Walsh in the final. Galahad's another step up from those guys, but they're still good quality wins. Up there with Galahad's last win over Claudio Morero, which was an eliminator. That was a good win as well. And Galahad, I thought, boxed really well that night, actually. Yeah. So perhaps he could have done with this fight being a bit sooner in terms of momentum.
Yeah.
But I just see it being a very, very tight fight. Jazza's a compact southpaw, aggressive, but with real boxing skills as well. Galahad's a switch hitter, accurate, good timing. They've both got underrated power and physical strength, I would say, as well. I will probably go along with you and go for Galahad on a close decision, maybe a split decision, who knows. But I would probably go with Galahad on a close decision, just for having that greater success at world level previously and just being a bit more physically robust and seasoned. That's the edge.
What's your stance on ring rust? Because there's so many different views on it from fighters, and Josh Taylor says he doesn't believe in it. Kanshu literally was the epitome of that for me. No, taking nothing away from Leewood, but where do you kind of stand on it? Do you think it just a fight affects different fighters differently?
Yeah, I think it is that. I think it's different for different fighters, and especially as you get older as well. They say as a fighter gets older, inactivity is a real problem because you take longer to recover. You need to be out regularly to keep that sharpness and to keep that speed and stuff. So, as you get older in your career and you're fighting at top level, it's not really ideal, the current situation in boxing where a lot of the top fighters only fight twice a year, even without a pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think, but also it's a confidence thing. Like Jazza coming into this off of 3 good wins in the Golden Contract in recent memory is going to bolster his self-belief, isn't it? Whereas Galahad, although he knows he's mixed it at the very top level and arguably did enough to beat Warrington, that was a long time ago now. So it's not as fresh in the memory, is it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it does affect different fighters in different ways, but I think it's got to be considered in such a close fight like this. I think it has to be considered an edge.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said there. How old is Kid Galahad?
God, off the top of my head, I don't know.
Not sure.
Early 30s, I think.
30s. And then Dickens, not sure. Well, they fought 8 years ago, so none of them are newbies in the game. They're both close to veterans and a youngster, but I think you've both broke it down there really well. It's going to be a close fight, but both in agreement with Kid Galahad by decision, probably. I'd be surprised if there's a knockout.
Yeah, so would I. We will review next week and see if you can do another clean sweep. It's only 3 this time instead of 5, so
yeah,
the odds are in your favour.
I think it comes down to the top 2. Well, who knows? Who knows? It's been a good one though to talk through the top 3. I mean, the ones below that are kind of they're not 50-50 at all, really. So there's not really too much point touching on them. But obviously, you've got to keep Fiaz. Ellie Scottney was meant to be on the card, wasn't she?
Yeah, she's had an injury, so she's going to be back out in September, I think.
Is that the second fight in a row she's had to pull from?
I'm not sure actually.
I remember she was tweeting loads about getting the train to Liverpool or something, or Newcastle. The show that yeah, it was the Newcastle show, I'm pretty sure, and she was tweeting about getting the wrong train or something. And I was laughing, and then she wasted like the money because she had to, I think her opponent pulled out or something like that. But Ebony Bridges, there's a few names on there, but the main 3 are going to be some good fights, I think.
Yeah, particularly the top 2. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if Wardley Webb will last particularly long, but I think the main event will be very, very good for the boxing purist and will go the distance. So fingers crossed. Yeah, we'll have a good night of action.
There we go.
And obviously, leave us your comments. You know, who are you picking in the main 3 fights? What have we got incredibly wrong? Let us know. Can't promise we'll reply or take it kindly, but let us know.
Good stuff, then. We'll see you next week around similar time to review kind of review the second week and then mainly talk on Buatsi Bolotniks in week 3, third and final week of Fight Camp.
Brilliant.